talkSPORT Extra Time. Bob Ballard taking you through till 6. Alan Brazil joined by Ray Parler on talkSPORT and on Talk Radio between 6 and 10. Paul Ross will be here and physically here with us at 5:30 to look ahead to what he's got on his programme to start the working week. Right, I did promise you that we'd talk NBA, and NBA we shall do. Max Whittle from The Guardian joins us now. Morning, Max. He's there. Hi, Max.
Hello.
Yeah, there you are in all your radiant glory. How's your week been? All right.
Very well, yes. It's been a busy one in the NBA. How are you?
Yeah, not bad at all. We've got quite a few things to go through, so we'll start with the Houston Rockets and a few moves that they've made. It's always a kind of very speculative thing. It can go very badly. From their point of view, it just seems to be going quite well.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned them on the show really this season yet. They've got a permanently aggressive general manager in Daryl Morey who says no rebuilds here. Always continuing to try to win and be aggressive in the trade market. And they had a big off season. First of all, they had to find a coach because they had JV Bickerstaff, who was a temporary coach replacing Kevin McHale. So they brought in Mike D'Antoni, who, if you don't remember him, was very successful with the Phoenix Suns in the mid-2000s. But since then, he's fell with the Knicks in the Lakers. So they brought in him, and they lost Dwight Howard, their big center. They didn't renew his contract last summer. And they replaced that with not a true center, but they brought in Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon, who were both in New Orleans. They took a shot on those two shooters. And so far, they've had the toughest schedule in the NBA. 14 of their first 20 games were on the road. Within that, they had 2 5-game trips. And I wanted to talk about the Rockets because they just went 4-1 in a very tough stretch where they went to face Sacramento, Portland, Utah, Golden State, and then Denver. Now, they only lost to the Jazz in that stretch. This is a team who went to China in pre-season as well. So they've had a really, really tough start. Currently, and unsurprisingly, with D'Antoni, they currently are second in the league in offense, scoring 111 points a game. And they've just got a really interesting team now. Clint Capella is freed up with Howard leaving. Anderson is now starting, and he didn't in New Orleans. He's a really good three-point shooter. And 19 times Houston have made 10 or more threes in a game. So that Golden State victory was really a statement because it was double overtime. They won in the end, and they had to fly straight to Denver. They arrived at 5 in the morning, and then they beat the Nuggets. So that's life in the NBA. But so far, it's a really interesting project under D'Antoni.
Interesting you mentioned the Nuggets because we will talk about this. Obviously, we get close to the date, but the Nuggets will be in London in about 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, so January, I think it's the 13th, they're playing Indiana. It's an interesting game. Last season was Toronto and Orlando, and it's kind of a similar matchup there. I mean, Indiana have been pretty disappointing this season. Denver have actually got a very talented team. In Nurkic and Jokic, they've got 2 players who you have to remember how to pronounce their names, but they've got a talented side. Hasn't quite done it yet. They've only won 7 games this season so far, but you can still get a few tickets there as well. So at the O2 in early January.
Yeah, they have to take a punt, obviously, at the beginning of the season. They can't decide in November, December who's coming out. They have to work out the schedule at the beginning of the season. And sometimes it backfires quite badly because you get 2 teams who are not in particularly good form, and it's not always the spectacle we want in London for the showpiece event.
Yeah, I'm not really, to be honest, I don't like the atmosphere. I think the NFL are luckier. They've got 3 games, maybe 4 next season. The NBA has 1 shot usually, but it's such a global game. You have, I think, 150 plus different territories they've played a game in now. So London kind of is not top of the list like it is in the NFL at the moment. It's just basically spin the wheel and see who we get. We have had teams like the Lakers over here, though.
Yes.
I think the players draw fans. It's not the teams. And this season you've got Paul George as the obvious star that people will come and see.
They like coming here, though. The NBA guys like coming to London because they feel an affinity with London. And you kind of think, well, why don't the NBA make more of it? Because they are a big presence in Europe, and they kind of want to make their stamp bigger. And you kind of think, well, why is it a one-off like that? There's got to be a bit more room for them to expand.
Yeah, it's weird because last season the Magic and the Raptors, like I mentioned, they came over here and they ended up staying for three nights, I think it was. And you were just asking the question, why didn't they just play a couple of games over here? A few seasons ago, the Brooklyn Nets played a couple of games. So I just think they could bring 4 teams over, have a little mini series where, one team plays and then they fly home and another team comes in, just so we get more games. It stretched back. I think the Magic were here in '95, and it's gone all the way back. But you asked the question, could London be more of a focus? But the NBA just is so successful everywhere else. And this season they had Oklahoma City were in Madrid for pre-season, and you had teams going to China. So London is obviously on their map, and a lot of people play basketball here, but it's not necessary that they grow the game just through London.
Yeah, it's a kind of piecemeal thing, and I think it annoys. I mean, having said that, there was a time when the NHL were here. They're not playing games in London at all now. So,
baseball will be here as well in 2018, apparently, which will be a very interesting project.
I still don't know where they're going to find a venue that can accommodate baseball, because the problem is the shape of a baseball stadium doesn't really apply over here. There isn't anywhere. I mean, London Stadium possibly.
I think that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
The Dodgers and Diamondbacks went to the Sydney Cricket Ground a couple of seasons ago in Australia for the opening day, actually. But I think there's an argument as well that America is saying, keep our game in the US, especially for opening games. I don't know whether they could maybe investigate that basketball pre-season as well over here, potentially.
Well, and I'd say if they were to do classes over here and go to schools and stuff like that, would be a great PR exercise as well. But the NBA know best. They've got the money and they know their strategy. But I just think, it just seems a bit piecemeal to me. But anyway, let's move back to the action, or in this case, inaction, because Memphis Grizzlies have got so many people on the treatment table right now. It's amazing they're putting a starting five together.
Yeah, it is incredible. They've fought through never-ending injuries this season, but yet they are 13-8 on the season. That's fifth in the Western Conference. They're holding it together, but maintaining that start is going to be really hard now, because Mike Conley, their starting point guard, and the guy who essentially everything goes through, even more than Westbrook in Oklahoma, he'll miss at least 6 weeks because of a transfer process fracture in his back. He signed in the summer the NBA's biggest ever deal, 5 years, and get yourself ready for this, $153 million. They are reliant on his ability to create for them. The issue with Memphis, they've got two rookies backing up Mike Conley at point guard, Andrew Harrison and Wade Baldwin, so there's not much depth there. And it just shows in the numbers on the court. When Conley plays, they outscore opponents by 6.5 points per 100 possessions. When they're not with him, that's on the other side of it on 13.8. And Memphis, it's a sad one, because they signed Chandler Parsons this summer from Dallas, and that was the most expensive outside addition they've ever made. He's only played 6 games this season, so he's been out. They've also missed Tony Allen, James Ennis, and Brandon Wright. So I don't know how they are 13-8 right now, but they're going to be without Conley, who's 29, back in probably mid-January. And it's said that 18 of the next 25 games that he's expected to miss are against playoff teams. So it's looking difficult right now.
A big November or late November, early December dip for the defending champions Cleveland. What's going on there?
So they've lost 3 in a row for the first time in a year. The first time under Tyronn Lue he's ever lost 3 in a row. They lost to the Bucks, the Clippers, and the Bulls in the last week. And they face Toronto tonight, who are now tied with them at the top of the Eastern Conference because of this losing streak. The problem has been interior defense. They were outscored 68-34 in Milwaukee, then 30-18 in LA, and then 78-60 in Chicago. And you'll like this, Bob, because the Cavs-Bulls game was highlighted by Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, who used to play together in Miami, now on opposing teams. And Wade being from Chicago and LeBron being from Akron, Ohio, they basically had a bet during the last World Series between the Cubs and the Indians. And LeBron had to pay up his bet. He had to come to the game with full Chicago Cubs uniform. If you haven't seen it, go and look at it. It was very funny. But yeah, like I mentioned, they've got the Raptors now, and I think the Cavs are just simply bored, because the Eastern Conference is such a weak conference. They squeezed past the Sixers last week, and there was a bizarre moment in that Bucks game I mentioned where J.R. Smith, one of the Cleveland players, he walked over to the Bucks bench and gave high five to Jason Terry, who was on the bench in Milwaukee, during the play. So J.R. Smith, the guy he was guarding, just stood on the basket, and he found an easy basket. It was completely bizarre, but it mimics the mindset right now, because LeBron's been to 6 straight NBA Finals. Everyone in the East is in an inferior league. Boston with a trendy pick at the start of the year, but they're too reliant on Isaiah Thomas. Atlanta gave the Cavs their first loss this year, but now they've lost 6 straight, and there's no real team challenging Cleveland. So I think they have to kind of get themselves up for every night. And it's not a challenge for them right now.
Max Whittle, thank you for coming on the program. We regular updates on NBA stuff with Max.